Happy
This is,
Thanksgiving.
yeah, happy Thanksgiving. Hey, you know what? We don't record this live. So,
You
so
probably figured that out.
yeah, so I'm not enjoying Thanksgiving dinner right now, but I will be when you listen to this. So, what is this episode going to be then? Because we're doing this before any news is hit. I mean, for all we know, EVs are no longer the thing. It's all hydrogen powered, and everybody went to
Drill,
fuel
baby,
cells.
drill.
Yeah. So for all we know, that's what's happening. What we're doing in this episode is something a little different. We're going to start off with kind of the basics, like a almost a Tesla ownership 101.
Yeah.
Uh,
And then by the end, it'll be 202 or 303.
yeah, hold tight a little bit because Ed is the kind of person where if you give him an
Something's worth
electric
doing,
car,
it's worth overdoing.
yes, he has an adapter, which you're not wearing the shirt.
No.
Uh,
Oh, shoot. I can go change real
no,
quick.
no, we're good. Ed's got an adapter for everything. So by the time we're done with this episode, you're going to know way too much about Ed's life and how much he
And the inspiration for our famous t-shirt.
yes, which we have a t-shirt. If you go to the whatcar.com slash
And
store.
actually, a couple of episodes ago, I actually wore it. So if you want to
Yes.
know what it looks like, go back
Yeah,
like two or
I've got
three
it's
episodes.
a shirt that says I've got an adapter for that. And that was the inspiration. Ed was the inspiration for that. I am Phil Royle. I am one of the co-hosts here on this podcast. I only have three adapters that I brought to this episode. And I believe only one of the three is usable for an EV world. I've been doing I've been doing general content creation for automotive world for 20 plus years as a journalist and content creator. And then, like I said before, I direct people to the whatcar.com slash store to purchase a t-shirt or a water bottle or a hat, which Ed is wearing. If you're on YouTube, if you're not watching the YouTube version of this, go to YouTube, like and subscribe, smash that subscribe button. And then you can watch us there because we're doing video stuff there and you can leave us comments and, maybe we'll ignore you or not ignore you. I don't know. Uh, and now I've talked myself into a circle. I don't remember where I was, so I will pass the baton to Ed.
All right. Ed Sanchez, likewise, 20 plus years in automotive content creation and moderation. Day job, automotive electronics industry analyst, and the Watt Car co founder and contributor, keeper of many adapters. And just to reiterate what Phil said, usually we discourage you from watching the video. This time, we're going to encourage you to watch it because it makes more sense in video format than just listening to us gab on and on.
But
So,
that doesn't mean the audio is useless. I hate listening to audio podcasts because the majority of podcasts I listen to are audio. And especially when it's just talking heads. That's all we
yeah.
are. We're just talking heads. So I hate listening to the audio, or I prefer listening to the audio. I hate when they're like, oh, and then it does this, and they don't describe what it is. We're not going to do that here. We're going to tell you what it is we're talking about. So you might not necessarily know if you don't know what a L1430 or an L1450 is. You might have to look those up, but we're at
If
least
you
going to just
watch the video, we'll
tell you.
show you.
Yeah, if you, we're going to show you in the video. But let's start off with the basics here. You bought a Tesla Model 3
In
back in
2019.
2019 and you did what you always do. You over researched and over prepared. So you ended up did you buy the bulk of adapters that you've got now before or did you kind of accrue them? And we're not talking about an adapter like NACS to CCS adapter. Those are not adapters we're talking about. Even
Although,
though you've got those too.
I do, I don't, so I actually don't have that one in particular.
Well,
I have it, just not with me to do show
yeah.
and tell. But
Yeah.
anyway,
So okay. So you got your car.
yeah,
What do you use to charge your car at home?
I use the Tesla mobile charger. Do you want me to look
Sure,
into it?
why not?
All right. So let's see if I can do this without.
So you don't have a dedicated bolt to the
Hardwired.
wall hardwired home
I,
charger.
no, I do not have a hardwired charger. I have two of these. This is the one I usually keep in my car. Um, this is the Tesla mobile charger. Um,
And this comes with a
yeah,
changeable head on it.
yeah. Okay, since we were talking about 1450, this is what a 1450 plug looks like.
So 1450 is like three
Yeah.
spades and a
Yeah,
dowel
it's four
kind of.
prongs. So, yeah, three. like blades and one like I guess ground plug or on or
Yeah.
whatever.
And this changes out like so when I've tested like the Mustang Mach-E,
Hmm.
that came with a Ford charger, very
Hmm.
similar travel charger, and then you just pop the heads off. So you could do level one, you could do level two at home, you could do. I wish I could
My
remember
guess
how many
is
tops came
it
on
was
it. Maybe.
probably the 515, which is
Yep.
your typical household three prong plug, and a 1450 would be my
Yes.
guess. That's how
Yeah.
most of them
I
come.
want to say it came with three, but I've got to be wrong. It's got to be two. I can't think of what the third one would be
Yeah.
that they would give you. So why though? Why do you use the travel charger and not a wall, like dedicated wall bolt to the
Number
bolt
one
to the
is
wall?
cheaper. It's
Ah, you're like me. This'll do.
yeah. So it's funny when I first bought the car, I actually did purchase the hardwired wall charger with it, but then I was kind of like, do I really want to go through this whole thing? And I thought it was probably kind of overkill for what I needed. So I actually took it back in and said, "Hey, could I just get another mobile charger?" And they, yeah, they traded it and gave me credited back the difference.
Now that
Um,
one was
yeah,
that was going to have to hardwire into your house.
yes,
And your house at the time, you've moved since then, but your house at the
yes.
time, that was a 30 amp, or was that, did you
That
have
was
the,
also 30 amp.
okay.
That house, which it was built in the late 70s, almost a 2,000 square foot house, had a 100 amp main panel, which would not, if it was new construction, for sure would have been 200. I think
Which
that's
is
code
better
now.
than my house,
Yeah,
which is built in the 60s, that when I moved in had an 80 amp panel
for the whole house.
for the whole house.
Yeah,
And
and you
since I've
upgraded to
updated,
200.
so yeah, so I'm at 200 now. So I can
Yeah.
run almost anything, but probably not the Ford because the Ford system is like 80 amp, and I wonder if I've got
Well, the
AC
Power
running
Station
and
Pro.
yeah, I wonder
Yeah,
if I've got
we'll get
AC
to
and
that in a little
everything.
bit.
Yeah,
Anyway,
maybe.
so my thought calculations and all this is I was like, well, if I do the full wall charger, if I do set it at like 50 or 60 amps, I might have to get a panel upgrade, which typically run about 5 or 6 grand.
It was expensive. If I
Yeah.
would have only paid 5 or 6 grand, I would have been happy.
Well, that's like a baseline,
Yeah.
but it's, there on up. And I was like, plus the other thing, little did I know at the time, but it was probably a good idea in retrospect, is if I moved, um, if you just have a plug-in state, you just unplug it and take it with you. Whereas I guess it wouldn't be that big of a deal for hardwired, but it would be a little more of a process to like, have to undo it and everything. I just thought it was easier.
It's easier to have your go bag ready when you just grab your wall charger, your
Yeah.
travel
So
charger and go.
basically, so what I ended up doing, my old house was, thankfully, the location of the main panel was right on the exterior wall of the garage. And the biggest thing about installing a home charging station, the biggest expense is what they call the run between your main panel and where the outlet's going to be. So a run is wire, conduit, all that between the panel and the outlet. So I asked the electrician, could you just punch a hole basically straight through the wall on the other side of the wall from the main panel and put a 30 amp plug there? He was like, yeah. And that was around $200. Whereas,
That's pretty good.
yeah. So
Yeah.
as opposed if I would have done on the opposite wall,
Yeah.
or if I was unfortunate enough that the main panel was like, you know, 50 or 60 feet away from where I wanted the outlet, that could have been potentially thousands. So anyway, I lucked out there. My next move in my next house wasn't quite as easy, but it still worked out in the greater scheme of things. But anyway, that's a little more of a complicated story, but I can tell that if you want.
No, no. Well, I mean, so what you found at the end though is
Yeah.
that you didn't actually need the home charger. Now, a lot of people say, you got to have the wall mounted thing and it's better and whatever. But
Yeah,
you've had this car since 2019, so 5
five and
years,
a half years. Yeah,
and so far,
it's
fine.
been fine. It's been
So it
fine. I've
is,
been using the mobile charger since I bought it new. Uh, no major issues.
and you have the 1450 connector on there, but you've
Mhm.
really got a 30 amp. But is it still a 1450 plug that you're plugging into in your garage?
No, I'll show you. I have the plug-in. It's not connected to. Let's see. Here we go. Here's a 1430. So looks similar to the 1450, but as you can see, the bottom prong here is like an L shape rather than straight. So that's basically to prevent it from going into a 1450. So this is a very specific outlet, specific plug. So this is a 1430. This is what I have in my garage as my basically my home charger connected to my mobile charger.
Hmm.
And like I said, I have two of these. One I keep in the car for, you know, edge cases. One I just keep in my garage plugged in as kind of my permanent home
Yeah,
charger.
you've got your permanent mobile
Yeah.
charger.
Yeah.
And so you've never had an issue.
Nope.
Rain or
No.
shine, this thing, I mean, they largely, I imagine it lives in your garage, and then you just got the
Yeah.
cord that comes out. Now you park in your garage all the time.
Yeah. Now I have a garage, but before basically I ran the cord under, I actually cut a little notch in the frame around my garage door so it wouldn't even though the most garage doors kind of have like a rubber gasket thing on them.
Yeah, it doesn't work
So
on my garage door wouldn't close. I was gonna have to cut a hole, and I wasn't willing to do
yeah,
it.
well, anyway.
Yeah.
So yeah, I for gosh, three about 3.5 years, I just closed the door on the cord. The cord that comes out, it's probably it's about the same as this. So this is probably about a half inch like diameter.
Mm-hmm.
So it's,
Of the cord. Yep.
anyway. So yeah, I parked outside for a long time. Now I park inside. Um, they don't really recommend the mobile chargers for prolonged outdoor use. I think occasional outdoor use, they're fine. But if you keep them indoors, I mean, like I said, I've had mine for more than 5 years, no problems. So
So, okay. So that was the 101 kind of thing. You plug it in, and
yeah,
then it works. So you can do either one. But you, um, you overthink a lot of things.
yes. And sometimes
So
I get impulsive about things and
yeah,
go
so
overboard.
the fear is always you leave the house and now you got to charge. Where do you charge? Well, supercharger network, that's fine. Or you show up at a hotel and they've got chargers there and that works. But what do you have? What scenarios went through your mind that then led to how many adapters do you have? Too many.
Probably, I think 7 at least.
Okay. So what started going through your mind? Do you remember the order that you got these in? And
Yeah.
what walk me through that?
Okay. So at the time, now new Teslas they don't come with anything. The brand new ones, you have to buy the mobile charger separately. When I bought mine, it was included with the purchase price, but it was not included with the 1450. The early Model 3s and Model S and stuff came with the mobile charger, 515 and a 1450. Mine came just with the one mobile charger and the 515, which is like the standard wall plug, which see. All right. This is your standard wall plug.
Yeah.
So
So
yeah,
what did you say? 15.
15 amp,
Yeah, no, it's a
which is
515. That's what. Yeah.
515. And we'll get into the whole 20% rule in a little bit, but effectively 12 amps.
Hmm.
Anyway, uh, so I was like, well, first of all, I contacted the electrician. I had a 100 amp panel. My previous house had air conditioning as well. I didn't want to stress out the overall system. And because I had the SR Plus, the smaller battery pack, I figured I could get away with 30 amps, which, I've had since I've had the car, and it's worked out fine. Um, I'll just say if you end up getting a larger EV with the larger battery capacity, like an R1T, like a Model S,
Like a
um,
lot of
a
EV
lot of
nowadays.
a lot of the larger EVs. If if it's within your system's capacity, I would recommend a 50 amp, um, or more, even 60 in some cases. But anyway, uh, where was I going with this? Oh, so had that, knew I needed the 30 amp, the 1430 end for my home setup. So, but I also got a second one to keep with my true mobile setup that I keep in my frunk. So I had that. I got a 1450 because that's a very common plug type, like out in the wild. Um, so knew I needed that. So then after that, um, I found out a previous church I went to where I was a volunteer Sunday mornings doing the audiovisual stuff. They had an L1430 outlet in their parking lot. And I was like, ooh, free juice. So ultimately they kind of, I think they put a padlock on it because they figured out what I was doing. So, but anyway, um, uh,
They can't trust their
yeah.
parishioners.
So this is actually, and let me grab that one. So this is not a Tesla standard, even though it does have the little adapter piece that goes into the mobile charger. This is not something you can buy from Tesla directly. This
So that's
one
an L1430.
is L1430,
Now, what was the other 1430 you had? What was the designation of that one?
just 1430.
Okay, so that was a 1430 non-locking. The L is for locking.
L is for locking. So basically,
Yeah.
it's got a twist lock that keeps it from coming out.
So that's the
Um,
interesting thing. Like, it seems like,
mhm.
and we should have prefaced this with neither you nor I are electricians.
No,
This is just learning by the seat of your pants.
yeah, learning, research, forums, blogs,
So a
whatever.
1430 has the weird little L thing and all this
Hmm.
stuff. An L1430 is a circle
Hmm.
that you put
Circular,
in
yeah,
and twist
yeah,
clockwise, like a quarter inch. It's like barely
yeah. It's
anything for
not
it to
much.
lock
It's
in.
like,
Yeah.
um, so anyway, are we allowed to name names and mention vendors?
Hey, why not?
Okay. So I got this off of a site called EVSE Adapters, EVSE adapters.com. So they basically any kind of obscure, weird, unusual adapter, connector, whatever, they have it. So that's where I got this. I have another one from them I can show you that we'll get to in a second. Also 30 amp, but 120 volt. So, um, and that may be something you're familiar with being a avid trailer camper.
Yeah, and it should also be noted because I looked at adapters from there when I had to buy
Mhm.
one to charge an EV at my house, and they're a little bit more,
Mhm.
but there's a
Because they're
communication.
essentially custom made.
Yeah, well, and there's
Yeah.
communication, I guess, that goes on through the cord. So
Mhm.
people say like, "Oh, don't use knockoffs
Mhm.
or cheaper ones." Like here, okay. So this adapter I've got, boom, L1430
To
to a
1450.
1450 that you could plug your 1450 Tesla or whatever, Kia,
Ford.
Ford,
Yeah.
whatever mobile charger onto this. You could plug it into an L1430, which is 220/240 volt, 30 amp,
30
and you
amp.
can
Yeah.
output something where it thinks you plug it in and it thinks the other end thinks, oh, I can pull 50 amps because this is a 50 amp
Yep.
cord. So you can trip breakers. You don't want to use this
Yeah.
unless you can dial down manually the juice that your car is asking for, which the Ford Mach-E cannot do. I wrote an article about it.
Yes.
And
Maybe it can now. I don't know if the newer
well,
versions they added that.
so now maybe it can now. I don't know, but the cords, some of the ones, if memory serves, could be
Hmm.
wrong about this. If memory serves, the EV website that you mentioned, which is not
Hmm.
sponsoring this podcast at
No.
all, but they are welcome to. Uh, that some of their cords will actually recognize, they will communicate certain things. Whether it would on something like this, they may not even sell a cord like this 1430 to or L1430 to
Well, I will show you something
1450.
similar. Not exactly the same, but similar. And I will share with you a little. So yeah, that's the advantage of Teslas is you can manually adjust the amperage draw from within the car.
And it's
So,
supposed to recognize as well.
and
But
it usually
and it
usually
usually does.
does.
But just know when you use
Yeah.
adapters like I've got, where I bought this off of Amazon,
Hmm.
because I'm using this for RV stuff where I have a far lower draw
Hmm.
than anything to do with an EV. I don't need to spend the money on something that's
Hmm. It's specialized.
yeah, I can get away with cheaper stuff. And I've used this
Yeah.
for EVs and it did blow the breaker and
Well,
had
because it wanted to draw probably 40
yeah,
plus amps.
it was trying to draw 40 amps through it. Well, it was trying to draw 32 because do you want to get to the 20 amp 20% rule? Uh
Okay, we could discuss. I mean, I have another show and tell if you want.
sure,
But
go for it.
okay, so this is like on Phil's. This is a 1450 end on this end. This is a 1030, which is a dryer plug that is actually no longer used. New 30 amp appliances use the 1430 plug, which is the four prong we showed you earlier. So this they use this through probably I think the early 90s for like 30 amp electrical dryers.
So
So
it's
in
not used
this,
on new homes, but a lot of homes from the 90s and earlier will still
yeah,
have that. Yeah.
no, it's out there a lot. So interestingly, it has a little. It's kind of hard to read here, but it has a little warning label on this. It says maximum continuous current 24 amps, designed for electric vehicle charging, not suitable for RV or range use. But with this, because this plugs into the 1450, and I'll try to grab the score in a little bit without throwing my back out. The 1450, it wants to draw 40 amps. So, but if you're if you're plugged into a 30 amp circuit, it'll
Like your
it'll
dryer.
it'll
Yeah.
trip the breaker
Yep.
because it's going to be an overload situation. So usually before I plug it in, I'll go into the car, into the charging screen and lower the amperage to 24 or even 20 sometimes. Um, just to prevent that because when you start daisy chaining adapters and extension cords and so on and so forth, um, it kind of breaks that line of communication because usually if you just do the adapter directly into the outlet, it's smart enough and it'll say, oh, this is 30 amp circuit, I'll dial it down to 24. But you plug this into a 50 amp cord, it'll say, oh, okay, then I can draw 40 amps. And then it leads to situations like you had with the Mach E. So anyway, um, I'm not I'm not sure if any other EVs allow you to adjust the amperage from inside the car. Tesla does. I think every EV should.
Yeah, they should. Whether or not you
Um,
can, I am not
yeah.
sure. I know that Mach E I did, you couldn't. I didn't look for it, but I don't remember it being obvious in the
Hmm.
Nero.
Hmm.
So I don't know if Kia's doing. You know, I looked something up. There was something with Hyundai Group cars that was a little different. I don't remember what that was, so I don't really want to speak of that. But
Okay.
to jump, so okay, so what you've got there
Hmm.
is that's a dryer plug that you
Yeah.
could then go to in a pinch if you're at somebody else's house. I'm assuming this is why you got this one. Is if
Yes.
you're at somebody else's house, you could say, "Forget you, don't do your laundry. I need to charge my car." And then you pull this out, pull
Yeah.
their dryer out of the wall, plug that in, make a
Yeah.
mess of their house, run an extension cord, and there you go. Keeping in mind the 20% rule, which we've mentioned before, and I want to get to that, is if you are on a 40 amp circuit, you don't want to pull more than 80% from that, which
Which
will be
would be
32 amps.
32. Yeah.
Yeah.
Which
So,
also happens to be the maximum Tesla mobile charger supports. So even if you plug it into a 50 amp outlet, it will only draw 32.
which helped make it easier for you to make that decision, presumably,
Yeah.
for you only had a 30 amp circuit anyway in your house.
Yeah. So
So
it's
if
like
you would have done the wall charger and done all that, you still would have been getting, you would have got, uh, I
a
don't know, eight
little
more amps
faster.
maybe. Yeah. It wouldn't have made
Yeah. It's not, it's a pretty minor difference in terms of charge speed.
yeah.
So it
So
really
for you,
wasn't
it
worth
was
it.
easy. For somebody else, if they've got 50 amp, it could make a big difference because they could be charging at uh, 40, whatever. If they've got a 50 amp
50
breaker,
amp
then
would
it'd
be
be
40, 60
40.
would be 48,
Yeah.
so
So
on and
it,
so
it
forth.
can,
Yeah.
8 amps and 8 amps do add together.
Yeah.
And, quickly you get into a charging difference. So those are what you have for like home stuff and for stealing, stealing if you want to steal power
Yeah.
from your church. Uh, so what are some of the like some of the other ones? Because I know that like there was a situation where you were out. You sent me a text years ago. You were going camping
Uh-huh.
and you sent me a warning on your screen that said basically you're about to be SOL,
You're
buddy.
going to be out of range of known
Yeah,
chargers.
there's no known
Charge
chargers
now.
around you. I've been on many a road trip in gas cars where I could not have done the trip in an EV.
Yeah.
Or could I? You
All
are
right. Let me see if I can find that one.
you're stepping beyond. Oh, we didn't pull out your 50-pound cord.
Oh, do we want to do that
Yeah,
first?
let's jump back to the 50-pound cord. All
Oh,
right, so you got
let's see.
not to jump around, but you now go and you plug in
Oh,
to the drive.
this grunting is not exaggeration, I assure you. Oh man. Oh, you probably just heard. I just dropped part of the cord on my
On your
the
toe. Are we
stand that
going to
the
the ER?
microphone is attached to. So that loud bong in your ears is this beast of a cord here.
So you plug into
Oh,
the dryer plug after stealing power from your friends,
okay. Yeah.
and now you've got this. What is this, like a 1 gauge wire?
It's six gauge, but
6 gauge, is it?
it's literally an inch in diameter. This thing is ridiculous.
So now you plug
Um,
that into
this is a 1450 plug.
that plugs into the adapter that plugged into the dryer plug, which was the
Yep. And this
1430.
is oh, sorry. I did it again.
And then that leads to the
Yes.
socket part, the plug, the female part of
Yeah.
the 1450 that you would then plug your plug it to this your charger into. There's a
Mhm.
couple things with that. It's really thick gauge because it's got to
Yeah.
be so it doesn't explode, I guess, because you're pulling a
Yeah.
lot of amperage through it. But you also, if it's anything like other cords, you want to make sure when you get it that you don't have it coiled.
Yes. And I learned that the hard way.
So when you use it, make sure it
It's laid
runs
out.
it runs out, even if you got to go back and forth a little bit, because it can generate so much heat. I've
Hmm.
done it with welding through
Hmm.
a 120-volt extension
Hmm.
cord. And I know I've heated up my L1430 extension cord leading to my 1450 adapter to charge an EV. I've heated that one up pretty good before the breaker blew on that one. So with this, you just, if you're, there's going to be other people that make comments, and you're welcome to it. Make comments on the YouTube channel. Don't use extension cords. Don't use adapters. Don't use any of this stuff. And that's correct. On a day to day, you don't want to use any of those things. But we're getting into fringe cases. Like you go to your mother's house or whatever it is, and you're not going to say, go and install. I need you to rewire your house for me. You
Hmm.
still want to get by. This is how you can get by without, you could go to a supercharger, you could do all of
Hmm.
this stuff, but here you could just plug in at a friend's house, work out the math on how much
Hmm.
you owe them, and just throw them
Yeah.
$10. Here you go. You
Or
know,
buy him a 12 pack or a pizza or
yeah.
whatever.
You don't want to steal electricity, but at the same time, there's a lot of convenience that comes with this.
Yeah. So
So so back to
let me
camping.
pull, yeah, back to camping. So this is my camping adapter.
So now
So
I see on one end, it's the 1450 that you will plug your travel adapter into, your travel charger
yes.
into. What's on
And then
the other
this
end?
may look familiar to you.
So what is that called? TT30?
TT30. So this is
TT30.
30 amp, but 120 volt. So this is kind of unique. So on this one, you also have to dial it back. It also has the same little warning label on there. This one, you also have to dial back the amperage in the car because because it's 1450 on this end, it'll want to pull 40 amps.
Yeah, it thinks, oh, I'm connected to a 50 amp circuit,
Yeah, so it'll
and it just tries to, um,
yeah.
I
Tries to
was thinking
gulp it
drill.
down.
I was trying to do a drill baby drill, but I was
Drill,
coming
baby,
up with,
drill.
yeah, but it was like a, I don't know. I can't think of anything that's appropriate.
Juice,
So,
baby, juice. I don't know.
yeah, juice baby juice. That's what it wants to do. Uh, so, all right. So now you go to a campsite that's got these. Now, a lot of new sites will have 1450. If you go camping,
Hmm. They'll
they'll have
usually
a
have both.
1450. Well, the newer ones, yes. I've been to many that just have the TT30 plug
Yeah.
because they're older campsites. I
Hmm.
don't go to Jellystones or KOAs or any of this stuff. I
Yeah.
go if where I camp, if there's a plug, then it's usually a TT30. So,
Bob's Motorhome Paradise.
yes.
Yeah.
So in that case, this plug that you've got
Hmm.
is the one that you want. And this
Hmm.
is what got you out of a pickle of traveling out into the boonies. And there
Hmm.
was no other charger around. The car said, you're out of luck, Ed.
Yeah.
You're
There was
get
so
ready to push.
yeah. So this was a friend's private kind of campsite. So, but I knew they had the TT30 plugs there. So I'm like, I just prepped ahead, got this, had my monster 40-pound 1450 cord. There was another public, well, public, it was private, but open to the public RV resort down the road that I think probably had 1450 plugs. So in a pinch, I could have gone there. But since we were just going to be sitting around the campfire and drinking beers and stuff like that, I knew the car would just be sitting for like 2 or 3 days. So even though this gives me a charge rate of like 10 to 12 miles per hour of charging, which is not great, but if I'm just going to be sitting around, it's fine. Over the course of 2 or 3 days, I'll basically get a full charge, be good to go.
Yeah,
So,
yeah. And there's
uh,
other ways that you could do that. I mean, if you wanted to go level one, I've got this one that is so this one's 1450 plug into
mhm,
that you would plug into the RV outlet if it's a
mhm.
more modern one, and then it outputs
Has four.
five has four 515 plugs, or you could get them with just one. I was getting this because hey, why not? Four is better than one. So
Now,
this
do those? I'm trying to look at those. Do those have the sideways winky um,
no,
outlets?
these are just standard outlets, and this one actually
Oh, but
converts from 240
mhm,
50 amp to I can get out of this still on 50 amp as far as I'm aware
mhm,
because it thinks it's on 50 because you'd be connecting it into 1450 so 50 amps
mhm.
but you're getting four 515 plugs so you could be
Okay, but
pulling
look closely at one of those plugs.
it's a
So
standard
it has like a T. One of the yeah, but
does it
one of
have
the
the
prongs
T?
is
Oh, it
T-shaped.
does have the T. What does that mean?
So that's actually up to a 520. So that could support up to 20 amps, I believe. That's why that one is kind of T-shaped. So it could
Yeah.
do either vertical or an horizontal prong. Now there's another weird one, which believe it or not, I don't have. I know it's what? It doesn't have an adapter. There's and I think it's actually 240 volt 20 amp. It looks similar to a 515 or 520, but both of the main prongs are horizontal instead of this way.
Isn't that like Europe or
No,
something?
no, they're in the US, and I believe I'm not an electrician. I'm sure we'll get some hateful comments on the video from
Oh, I'm sure we're going to
electricians
get
about
tons of
this.
hateful comments on this because everybody's going to say you don't use adapters.
Yeah, well, no, well, besides that, but yeah, I believe on the 620 you can use basically the same wiring as a 515. You just double it up, and you can. I don't know. There's some. Again, I'm not an electrician, but it's supposedly a good interim choice. Like if you don't have either the capacity or bandwidth or the wiring to do a full, like say 1430, you could do a 620, which is kind of an in-betweener. So I've heard. I don't know. But
In
it's a
other words,
pretty
there's adapters
unusual.
for everything.
Yeah.
Like,
Either through Tesla or through third-party sites like FC.
Yeah, and I mean, this is back
Yeah.
to RV stuff that we're not here in RV podcast, but here I've got an adapter that can do 1450
To TT30.
to a TT30. So if I ever go to a
So
campground,
that's basically like the reverse of what I just showed you,
yeah, this is
I
something
think.
that nobody would have a
Yeah.
need for with an EV, but with a camper, I might need to go from a 1450 to my
Yeah.
camper is a TT30. So
Mhm.
these adapters are not just for, it's not just madness in the EV world. It's
Yeah.
also madness in every other world where your world runs like in campers. Your world runs on
Yeah.
electricity and water. Those are your two things. You have adapters and redundancies for everything when it
Yeah.
comes to electricity and water. And with EVs, at least until there's a charger on every corner and
Hmm.
in the desert, like as soon as Rivian might be the savior in all of
Yeah.
this, bringing chargers out to the boonies.
Hmm.
Uh, this is a reality. Did you have
Hmm.
more adapters, or is that?
Yes. No, I
Oh
have
my
more.
gosh, I thought that was it. I'm
Um,
looking at the clock. I'm like, well, we're done, folks. But apparently,
so
there's more
this
adapters.
one,
So that one, what you just had before was a TT30 to a 1450 was good for campsites.
mhm.
And then once again, you could use an extension cord and you could run that out. Uh,
You might
so
recognize this.
so what is this? This is
I've used this at your house.
yeah, this is an L1430.
Extension cord.
Yes. So my house has all L1430s. All my 220, my 200, all my 240-volt stuff
Hmm.
runs through L1430s. So everything that if I want to plug in anything 240, then I have to adapt it back. So I have a long L1430. So I'm now holding back my L1430 that plugs into a wall into my 1450. But I didn't want to get a 1450 extension cord
Hmm.
because I have more use for an L1430 extension cord. So like you,
Hmm.
I have an L1430 extension cord that I plug into my house. Then I run the extension cord out onto the driveway. Then I can convert from the L1430 to a 1450. Then I can plug the 1450 in to the travel adapter,
Yeah.
travel charger, and then
Hmm.
that goes to the car, making sure that you can dial it down. And if you can't dial it down, you can't charge. You can't dial down your amperage in
Yeah.
the car for your charge rate. You can't charge. And that was my problem with the Mach-E. You
Yeah.
cannot do it, at least on the version I had. You cannot downgrade it, and it would not step down
Yeah.
itself.
And I think in the early iterations of Maki, it was actually a hardware issue. It's not something they could just magically push out an OTA update and fix.
All my research showed it was not fixable. Yeah,
Yeah. I think maybe on subsequent versions, maybe they
maybe.
have
I haven't
updated the
driven a new
hardware
one.
to accommodate that.
Yeah. I
Anyway,
was so mad at the first one that
okay, so the one well, there are actually several I don't have. So what we were talking about toward the beginning was the J1772 to Tesla level 2 adapter, because basically almost all the level 2 chargers in the wild right now are J1772. Um, when you buy Tesla new, it's included. But like I said in my personal video, which I don't know if you want to link to, it's kind of a repeat of a lot of this, but it's just me yakking. Um, if you buy a used Tesla, make sure you have one of those either that came with the car, or they're like $50 online to have. But if you want to level 2 charge in using public networks like ChargePoint, EVgo, Blink, whatever, you have to have one of those. Now, eventually, I think the belief is J3400 or NACS is going to basically replace everything, both level 2 and level 3. But that's probably 7 to 10 years away from being a reality. For the moment, the vast majority of level 2 are J1772. So I don't have one of those to show and tell with, but I do have another one. This would
your
also
weapon.
doesn't
This was your
quite
self-defense. Uh,
blunt force object. So this is the CCS1 to NACS J3400. So this allows Tesla drivers to use third-party networks like Electrify America, EVgo, so the level 3 DC fast charging. Um, so this is the reverse of basically what Ford and GM and whoever are sending out to a lot of their owners. I don't have one of those, but it's basically this on this side and this on this side.
So what? So yeah. So it converts instead of it plugging whatever. It makes it so you can plug in your car that's got a CCS plug
To a supercharger.
into a supercharger, whereas
Yeah,
the adapter that you've got that you're holding
is the
goes
opposite.
is the opposite, and it allows you to charge your Tesla at an Electrify America or
Yep.
EVgo or whatever that has the CCS. So, all right, what I'm buying an EV.
Yep.
What in your because you've kind of done it all. Like it's one thing, there's all these things of, oh, well, you gotta I listen to these things where these are the secrets, the charge curve and all this. Hey, who cares about the charge curve? You
Hmm.
just want to charge. All you
Hmm.
want to do is charge in certain situations. So
Yep.
you're buying an EV. What adapters do you actually need?
Uh, Again, it depends on if you have a Tesla or a non-Tesla. I would I would try to get at the very least, and unfortunately, the non-Tesla like modular chargers that have the swappable adapter ends, some of those are pretty expensive. We're talking like $500 to $600.
Oh wow.
Um, the Tesla mobile charger is $250. It's really the best deal out there. I mean, if you're a Tesla owner, I mean, no, not throwing shade on any of the other companies. I wouldn't bother. I just get a Tesla mobile charger. In terms of capability, flexibility, um, in my experience, durability. I've been using one for 5 years straight, no problems. Bang for the buck. I think is the way to go. Um, if you have a non-Tesla, a really well-regarded brand, a little on the higher side. I think it's like in the $500 range, is Webasto, and they
Mhm.
have. So I think GM actually private labels them. Um, I think that the charger that comes with like the Bolt has a 515, a 1450. You can purchase other like modular plugins on them. That's what they use. Um,
And so you're saying get a travel charger that you just keep in your frunk or
mhm.
trunk if you have
or,
something that's
or
not a
wherever.
Tesla. It doesn't have because
Um,
a lot of non-Teslas don't have frunks that are big enough.
in terms of the must-haves, I would say a 515 and a 1450 at the bare minimum.
That
I
goes
would say.
onto that travel charger.
Yeah, that will
Yeah.
fit. Have a charger that will accommodate either one of those. 515 is your standard household outlet. They work. They're extremely slow. Um, so hopefully you're not in a big hurry to go anywhere if you use one of those. 1450 will give you much, I think, literally like 4 or 6 times as fast a charge as just a 515. That I would say that would be your bare minimum. Um,
So
and
the
mhm.
the charger that when you were stealing from the church, uh, so your L1430, yeah, your L1430 to the receiver end of the 1450. How many times you just use that at church and at my
No,
house, I think.
this was actually a direct. This is a direct fit to the Tesla mobile charger.
Oh, okay. Yeah, so
Yeah.
there you use your extension cord or if you needed to do
No,
it.
I
But
just literally, no, I did not use an extension cord with this. It was
because
close enough.
the yeah, it's close enough that
Yeah.
you could do
So
that.
I plugged this directly into the mobile charger, plugged this into the outlet, and just that's it.
Outside of at the church and at my house,
Mhm.
how many times have you used that?
Those are the only
Negligible.
times.
So there you go. So that's probably not
Um,
unless you're going to
yeah,
steal from the
it's
church
kind of an edge
or
case.
go to your buddy's house and steal electricity there, then that's then you don't really need that. The camping one, if you need that one. If you're going to go and you need a TT30,
Mhm.
I would say that's a very edge case
Yeah.
for that one.
Well, so the edge case when I was using that is the people that I was camping with, they had a like 36-foot diesel pusher motorhome. they took the 1450, but there was still the TT30. So I mean, I would have loved to have taken the 1450, even though my car can only the SR Plus can only draw a maximum of 32 amps. But I was like, I'll take what I can get. Um, so that's why I got the little adapter to use with the 1450 extension cord. Again, if you're just sitting around, the campfire drinking beers, you're
Yeah,
going to be there for like 2 days, no big deal.
it is very different because at the racetrack, because that's my other life is at
Hmm.
racetracks. At one of the racetracks near me, they have RV spots with power that
Hmm.
you can get. And during
Hmm.
track days, Teslas are very popular. And so a lot of people will come with their Teslas and run their track days. We've now installed at that track superchargers. But
Hmm.
before that, you were stuck with getting one of the RV spots and getting a plug. I believe, and I'm not 100% sure on this, but I believe those were TT30 because it was an old enough
Hmm.
setup. And so I stopped and I talked to some of the Tesla guys that were running the track day because they were plugged in. And I was
Hmm.
like, does this actually give you enough juice? And their answer was no, not between sessions. It doesn't. So they would drive 20 minutes south to a supercharger. Now there's a supercharger at the track. But before they
Hmm.
were driving 20 minutes down to the supercharger. They'd just go and get a cup of coffee or something.
Hmm.
They'd charge the car and then they would drive back. And the amount of
Hmm.
juice that they would lose in that meantime was kind of negligible. And that was where
Hmm.
they would come back and they just plug in to kind of
Hmm.
offset,
Kind of just trickle charge. Yeah.
yeah. So in a lot of cases like this, if you're just going to go and say hi at the campsite, like
Hmm.
you've done with us before, I camped up at Laguna Seca and you
Hmm.
came and you visited there. You didn't bother plugging in or anything. You just park your
Hmm.
car because you're only there for a short period of time. But if you're going to
Yeah.
be
And I
there for
live like 6 miles away.
yeah, I
So,
mean that, but there you're not. I mean, we've done other trips where you didn't plug it. You came and visited me while I was
hmm.
camping, and you
Hmm.
didn't come in and plug in or anything. You just park
Yeah,
because
but
there's other
it
chargers.
wasn't,
It's
it
yeah,
was near charge. It was close enough to charging. I wasn't too concerned.
yeah, and the amount of juice that you're going to gain is negligible.
Hmm.
You might as well just go to a fast charger somewhere else,
Hmm.
and you're good to go. Where you've used it is very edge case. You're off in the middle of nowhere,
Hmm.
and like you said, you're sitting there for hours
Hours or days. Yeah.
or days. Yes. Yeah. In fact, it would be. I mean, it wouldn't have to be days, but at least a day.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
it's a good overnight
When
charge.
you're not in a hurry, basically.
Yes. Yeah.
So long story short, yeah, a lot of people think, well, I mean, I don't know if you've talked to your friend since that got the Lexus RZ that thinks she can only plug it on her 515 in the garage.
Yeah.
But a lot of people think their only options are basically that or a level 3 DC fast charger. There's a lot of options in between if you know where to look and you know what to do. So
Yeah.
I'm
So the point of
yeah,
this episode is
yeah.
not to say you've got to know what an elf. So I did an article. It was my Maki article, and
Hmm.
I listed the adapters and I listed all of this stuff, and I got a response to that from
From
a guy
Ford.
I knew. No, from a guy I knew, and he was saying that all naming all these adapters and everything is
Hmm.
everything that's wrong with the EV industry. That you shouldn't have to know any of this stuff. And I kind of agree with him.
Yeah.
You don't need to know what an L1430 is. You shouldn't have to know any of this stuff. You shouldn't
Hmm.
need to know what a TT30 is. You shouldn't need to buy a frunk full of adapters. You shouldn't have, as our shirt says, an adapter for that. But you can.
Yes.
You can have all of this. And that's kind of the point is you don't need to know all of this stuff right now. And
Yeah.
you don't really, most of you don't even need to know it ever.
Yeah. But
But
all I'm
the
saying is
options are there.
options are there. If there's an edge case, if you go to a certain friend's house, he has a certain kind of weirdo outlet, you visit him enough and you're good enough friends, he doesn't mind pirating some of his juice. There's probably an adapter out there for it. Um, Final point. I know we want to wrap this up. So um, I have charged at campsites. I've actually even charged at KOA. Now, I was a little curious about this, and I found on KOA's website they explicitly discourage this. Um,
I can
so,
see it.
so they have, I mean, I guess nationwide, probably over 100 campsites, I'm sure, if not more. But they have 27 locations that have level 2 chargers. Um, and they say if they're not saying EV is not welcome, they're saying EVs are welcome, but don't use the hookup post to charge your EV. Now, if it's an isolated case where it's only like one or two Teslas for the whole campsite, probably not a big deal. But I could see if it's like, Hummer EV, Ford Lightning, Model X, blah, blah, and there's like dozens of them that could potentially overload their system.
And
So I
they're
think
plugging in,
that's,
and the campers are plugging in and pulling two
yeah,
air conditioning units.
yeah,
And then look at the price. The
yeah.
price to charge up, we did the math the other day of the price to charge up an EV truck after you've
Hmm.
charged a long distance might be $20. It's,
Hmm.
it's only 20
And you're
bucks,
you're paying,
but you're paying like 75 bucks for some of these KOA spots. And now you've
yeah,
taken 20 bucks off the top, on top of probably 5 or 10 bucks that you're taking off for the camper electricity that you're using. Pretty soon they're not making any money on this
yeah,
deal.
and that's not even taking into account peak charges,
Yeah.
which they may be paying if a lot of their guests are using a lot of power. It might even put the side owners into like super peak rates, so they'd really be losing money at that point.
So if you're going to go to a campsite or say a church, ask before
Ask, yeah. Now
before
in
you
my
plug in.
case, I not to sanctify myself, but I did ask my kind of the direct guy I reported to, hey, can I do this? And he's like, yeah, sure. But I guess the people above him found out about it, or they got their next utility bill and they're like, what the heck?
It's
And
a
they're
spike.
like,
It's
no,
a spike. If
yeah,
you operate something and like I can tell every time I was testing an EV, I could
yeah,
tell just by looking at my electricity bill when I had that EV.
yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, I can even look at my like hour to hour usage on my utility bill, and I can definitely tell when I'm plugged in for
Yeah.
sure. So
So
long story short, yeah, ask.
ask ahead of time. It's not ask for forgiveness. It's ask ahead of time.
Well, yes. And I would say, again, not to be a rule breaker here, if you're really in a pickle, you're in a really remote area, no level 2, no level 3 chargers, but you are near an RV park, I would say in if you're really desperate, if you go to their front desk and say, look, I know this, I'm not technically supposed to do this, but I'm in a real situation here. Can I give you 20 bucks or something? Can I plug in for a couple hours? I would guess most places would say, yeah, fine. But like you said, ask.
Yeah,
Um,
they're looking to make a buck.
yeah.
A lot of campsites, you don't necessarily like. You might be able to dump your tanks for free at a campsite, but
Hmm.
if you're just driving by, they'll charge you 10 bucks. They are a
Hmm.
business. So if you
Hmm.
come in and you say, here's 40 bucks, can I charge for an hour?
Hmm.
They'll probably go, all right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Assuming that they're set up to take that money or whatever it is. If it's
Hmm.
private,
Hmm.
if it's like national parks and stuff, I don't. It's a different story.
Yeah.
But they might turn you away, but they might say, yeah, they might give it to you for free. But it's all
Yeah.
worth it.
Always ask. Yeah.
It's always worth asking. And this is part of you're going to go into a road trip. You're going to go into remote parts of the country. These are options.
Hmm.
These are all
Yeah.
options.
You're basically wherever you can get power, you can charge. Now, it may take a while, but
Yeah,
that's the long and
yeah. If
short
you
of it.
set out your solar panels, expect to be there for a while. But hopefully by
Yeah.
then it's the zombie apocalypse and you're not moving on for another couple months. We've got to
Yeah.
get out of here. We started this episode thinking it was going to be 20 to 30 minutes, but
Yeah.
because
We're
we're
about an hour
nerds,
in.
yeah, we're nerds, so we could talk about adapters. This is going to be my sister's favorite episode. I guarantee you. She
Well,
loves adapters.
well, absolutely no relevance to the UK, by the way, which is a completely different electrical system.
Yeah, yeah. So I would say everything we talked about to be found in the show notes, but I don't really know if we've got any links. Maybe I'll find a couple links
Maybe
to put
link
in there.
back to the adapter video I did on my private
Oh yeah, there you kind
page.
of walk through it as well.
And there's a few other little Easter eggs in there that we didn't discuss here. So
Yeah.
anyway,
Uh, thewalkcar.com/store is where you can go and get a shirt that says I've got an adapter for
adapter
that.
for that.
We've done a whole episode specifically to sell that one shirt, and Ed forgot to wear his for this
The
episode.
heck.
That helps support the blog and the podcast, so that is great. Leave comments on YouTube. Smash that like button. Uh, Kids aren't saying that anymore, but I still am because I'm not a kid. hello at thewalkcar.com is how you can reach us otherwise. And what was the name of the EV adapter?
EVSE adapters.com. One
They
word.
should head to thewalkcar.com/advertise
Yes.
because we're kind of endorse them because we're not just a no we're just a client
We're
we're
a
just a
customer.
customer, yeah, we're just a customer, and we'd love to be a client.
Yes. So hope you had a happy Thanksgiving and we'll see you in the next episode.
Chat with you later.